What's up guys, welcome to my tips and tricks, or a basically how to get started and don't starve together guide. Today I have 12 tips for you, with a little extra thrown in here and there. This is essentially how I like to go about progressing my game in the early stages, to ensure I have a strong start for the future. For educational purposes, I'm going to go with Wilson, as I feel he's pretty much the stock character. Without further delay, let's get into the video. My first tip for you is to collect everything you come across in the first few days mostly. What I mean by this is to focus on grabbing twigs and grass, rocks and gold, and food like berries and carrots. Grabbing these items usually means you'll have everything you need to start crafting later. If you get lucky, you can find gold pretty early, which will let you craft your science station and alchemy engine also early. Tip number 2. Once you feel like you've collected a solid amount of starting resources, start to research and craft different items. I highly recommend a shovel, a backpack, and grabbing a hammer if you don't already have one. A backpack is going to give you 8 extra slots that are necessary for lugging around all the treasures you may come across. The hammer is going to allow you to crack pig houses, as well as stakes around touchstones, which will give you some easy pig skin. You can place down a science machine for 1 gold, 4 rocks, and 4 logs, which is pretty cheap. For your alchemy engine, you're going to need a total of 4 boards, 4 cut stone, and 4 gold. The 4 gold and 2 cut stone will be changed into electrical doodads, and then you can pre-craft your alchemy engine. I'd also recommend grabbing some early weapons and armor, like a spear or a log suit, for any random enemies you may come across. Prototyping different items also gives you back a whopping 15 sanity per item, so it's a nice way to top off your sanity if you are lower than you would like to be. Next, we have tip number 3, which is collecting renewable resources. All those grass plants and saplings we've been collecting from, you actually take them to your base and plant them to have them grow and collect from them every few days. Simply dig them up with a shovel and they're yours. This makes it easier to build a stockpile of these vital resources so you can have them on demand. I'd recommend grabbing at least 10 of each. Tip number 4 is to explore most, if not all, of the surface early. This allows for you to get a general layout of your world and where things are, as well as helping you to find the best place for your alchemy engine and to begin your base. Make sure you have a torch crafted or even a lantern so that you're not vulnerable to Charlie. When exploring, I generally go along the outside of each biome so I get a general world layout. Some biomes you may want to base in could be the deciduous forest, which is where the Pig King may reside, or near a desert for access to dragonfly and cactus. In general, you want to try and base in the middle where you can be close to most everything you may need. Tip number 5, and it's a big one. Collecting food like berries and carrots is crucial here in order not to be slowed down by the need to eat. Along your journey you may come across some suspicious dirt piles, which can lead up to 4 different creatures, but more often than not, you should see a koalefant. Koalefants function the exact same as beefalo in terms of bringing them down, but give so much more meat, and even a trunk which when cooked is good for healing. However, once you find them, that's when the real challenge begins. First you have to chase them down.
A few moments later.
Killing a koalefant isn't too bad. Simply corner the koalefant and run in for 1 hit. And it is a dance with you going in for 6 to 7 attacks, and running away just in time to avoid the koalefant's massive trunk. A few rounds of this and the loot will be yours. Just make sure if you are doing this close to nighttime like I am, that you have a lantern or a torch ready to go. Also, consider bringing armor to all fights. A log suit or a football helm will reduce incoming damage by 80%, which is vital to keeping you alive. Tip number 6 is a simple but important one. Collect pig skin whenever you see it. It can be from the touchstone spikes or from pig houses, with the latter giving you also 2 cut stone and 2 boards. Tip number 7 is to head into the caves early so you can grab some light bulbs in order to craft a lantern at your alchemy engine. Simply mine the rocks around a sinkhole and hop in. Lanterns are way better than torches when it comes to lighting because anytime your lantern gets low, you can throw in some more light bulbs to get it back to 100%. You only need a few light bulbs for now, and you can always come back later when you need them. In order to craft your lantern, you're going to need 3 twigs, 2 rope, and 2 light bulbs. Once your lantern gets low, you can refill it by selecting the light bulbs and placing them into the lantern with right click. Tip number 8 is to take note of important POIs. Pig King is especially important as you can trade in little trinkets for sometimes massive gold returns, which can make your early game much faster. Tip number 9. Deserts. Deserts can hold a ton of resources such as rocks, cacti, tumbleweeds, oasis, dragonfly, but cacti can be cooked on a fire and eaten for 15 sanity apiece, which is kind of massive and can bring you back from Crazy Town. I recommend wearing an armor when collecting as they're a little prickly. In tumbleweeds, you can find anything from twigs and grass to gears and trinkets, which can be traded for gold. If you come across any tumbleweeds, I highly recommend unwrapping those bad boys and seeing what they have. Tip number 10 is finding a good spot for your base. Highlighted here I have the oasis on the far left and the Pois King on the far right. X is kind of where I plan to base, as there are beefalo below me in the savanna and tons of rocks above me in the rocky biome. It's kind of far from the desert, but in this case I don't mind the walk. Which leads us into tip number 11, which is to set up the renewables you collected earlier so you can benefit from them pretty early. Pick up some berry bushes too if you want some extra food in your base, and you can easily take from them. Throw some poop or rot on the grass and berries as they need a little extra help before they'll start to grow. The plants should yield their respective resource every few days, so it's worth it to grab more than you think you would probably need. I wanted to throw this in here too. It's an example of giving the Pois King a trinket, and he gives me 8 gold in return. Makes getting gold in the early game really super easy. Next, a little bonus tip dealing with sanity. In your adventures, you may have come across some green mushrooms and the cacti from earlier. But you can cook both of those items over a fire, and it'll give you a whopping 15 sanity for both of them per piece. Now, be careful with the green mushrooms as they do take 1 health, but it's not too bad for what you get in return. Finally, let's talk about combat. For hounds, they'll charge you and try to bite you. You're going to dodge this bite and hit them twice. They'll try another bite, which you'll need to dodge, but you'll need to repeat this sequence and you'll slay them all. The next method of killing the hounds is to build a bunch of hound traps and place them like you see here. Then run them over and watch them all die. Hound traps can be crafted at the alchemy engine, but you'll need hound's teeth first in order to craft. Next, we have our spiders. Spiders are a little bit different because they become stun locked when you attack them. They aren't too dangerous unless the nest turns into a spider queen, or there are a bunch of spiders everywhere, or both. With a spear it takes 3 hits, and a fresh hand bat is 2. Make sure you bring them away from the nest, as if you're too close to the nest, you'll end up spawning whatever else is in the nest on top of you. When you have your spider right where you want them, dodge their first attack, and run in and take them down. Rinse and repeat for the whole nest. Spiders have a chance to drop 1 of 3 items: monster meat, silk, or spider glands. All are pretty valuable, but the spider glands can be used immediately for +8 health or made into healing salves at an alchemy engine and your survival tab with a few other resources. Next, we have to talk about our frogs, the bane of many a DST player. Avoid at all costs. However, to kill them, dodge their first attack, run in and hit them once, and run out and go back in after their attack. They only drop frog legs, which is kind of a ripoff. Now, let's talk about killing the majestic and wonderful beefalo. There are a few rewards in killing them in the form of beefalo fur, meat, and the elusive beefalo horn. This horn can be used to make a beefalo hat for the winter, or to assist farm plants in growing. In order to make this easier on yourself, feed the beef a twig and run it far away from friends and family, and then just like the koala from earlier, it's 1 attack to aggro and then dodge, and 6 to 7 attacks and then dodge. Rinse and repeat until you get your meat. The only real differences between beefalo and koalafant is the koalafant's going to drop more meat and also a healing trunk, and the beefalo is going to drop fur. And possibly the horn, if you're lucky. Maybe, possibly. And here we go, we got more hounds. The other common way you can use to kill the hounds is to drag them to the big furry protectors. This is one reason some players like to base around the beefalo, as it makes early hound waves easy peasy. Run in circles around the beefalo until the hounds begin to de-aggro on you, and re-aggro onto the beefs. Larger groups of beefs will have no problem dealing with larger and larger hound waves. Beefalo also breed over time, creating more beefs for you to exploit as you see fit. Next, we have our Clockworks. The easiest ones to deal with are the ones shown right here, which are the knights. They drop gears, which will let you craft an icebox to double the storage time on some of your food. Clockworks are the most complicated mob that we've covered so far. In order to kill them, you need to bait their first attack and dodge it, and then run in for 2 to 3 hits. Then something interesting happens. They'll either do a little horsey animation or another attack. If they do the horsey animation, you have time to sneak in a few more hits. Like with the other mobs, rinse and repeat, and this strategy, you'll do just fine and you'll bring down these mobs. Next, we have a couple of mobs you may run into if your sanity drops below the threshold to spawn nightmare creatures. The tall guy is a Terrorbeak, and the more dangerous of the two. Once you understand them, however, both mobs are pretty easy to take down, and will give you one of the most valuable resources, that being nightmare fuel. In order to ensure their death and your survival, we once again need to bait an attack and then go in for one. Then they'll despawn, and then reappear nearby. They have a decent amount of health, so you'll need to rinse and repeat until they fall. I highly recommend wearing armor in all combat situations, but especially when fighting the nightmares, as they can be pretty unpredictable at times, and you may take a hit or two. Terrorbeaks do 50 damage without armor, and the crawling horrors do 20. A few hits from both or either of these mobs would be enough to kill you before you even knew what happened. Over time, you'll become better and better at fighting these monsters, and these have actually become one of my favorite fights to do, as they're kind of like a mini game each time with how they change spawns and how you get a little something out of it. Finally, let's talk about healing and food recipes. In order to make pierogies, you will need a bird to give you some eggs. Grab some reeds from a swamp to craft a bird cage in the Structures tab, and then craft a bird trap with silk and bait it with some seeds in order to capture your bird. Put the bird in the cage and feed it meat to give you some eggs. Store these eggs in the icebox to maximize their uptime, and let's get cooking. For pierogies, you're going to need 1 meat, 1 vegetable, which can be a carrot or a mushroom or any other veggie you may come across, whether you're farming or whatnot. Then throw in one of the eggs from earlier, and a filler, which will be berries for us since we have the berry farm handy. Pierogies give a 37.5 hunger and 40 health, making it one of the best healing foods in the game. Pierogies are insane for bringing you back from a dire situation all the way back up to where you're feeling nice and comfy. The last recipe are meatballs, which is pretty easy, which is a meat or a monster meat, and then 3 filler, which can be berries, mushrooms, cooked birch nuts, ice. You take it, you can probably use it. And with that, that's the end of the video. I threw a lot at you today. If there's anything that you have any questions about, please leave a comment below. I'll try to my best to answer any and all questions. If you have any questions about something that was not shown in the video, I also stream live on Twitch, which the link will be in the description. I'd be happy to answer any and all questions. You know the drill. Subscribe to my channel so you can be notified of future videos, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.